Hi there you guys, it's Danny. So today we're going to be answering a common question actually. This one is sent by Chris, and he's saying that he waters his orchids with tap water and if he's doing the right thing there, because some growers say only to use rainwater. Now I want to make a full discussion about this because a lot of people actually wonder about tap water and rainwater and stuff like that, but nobody actually understands why some people say only use rainwater. And by the way, they're not particularly right, and some people say I only use tap water and it's okay. They're not particularly right either. So I'm gonna make this a discussion to help you guys decide for yourself which water you want to use. It's gonna help you a lot, and it's sort of a chemistry discussion, but I will make it easy for you guys because I'm not a chemist either. I just know some basic stuff. So let's explain water once and for all so we can all decide for ourselves which water is best for our orchids and stop believing what everybody says. Okay, first off, I'm going to talk about some very important parameters of water, and then I'm going to take each type of water and discuss about it. So here's what you need to know. Here's what differentiates tap water from distilled water, rainwater, and so on. There are a few parameters that are very, very important for you to know, and I will only discuss about two of them. And these are the general hardness of water and also the pH of your water. Let's take the general hardness. This actually refers to the total amount of dissolved minerals in your water. And I think you saw the sign in a corner of the screen. It's measured in degrees, and these degrees actually tell you if you have soft water or hard water. Now, soft water has a low degree of dissolved salts, and of course hard water has a high degree of dissolved salts. And I'm going to give you on a corner of the screen right now a sort of a chart where you can see what is considered soft water, medium soft water, hard water, and so on and so forth, so you just know the values. Now, how to know what type of water we're dealing with? Well, you can always ask your local water provider to give you a bulletin, but there is a much easier way than that. If you go to your local pet shop or one that has aquaristic merchandise, look for test kits, and you will find a test specifically for the general hardness of water. You can see it on a corner of your screen right now, and it's really easy to use it. One type of test will actually be a sort of a liquid that you have to drop in your water, and you have to count the drops, and as many drops as you count until the water color changes. This is how hard your water is. This is the degree of your water. But there's also the type of test that has a strip, and you can dip it in your water and it will make a sort of a particular color, and you can read the test. You can find these stripes actually, I think, in grocery shops as well. Either way, where you can buy Calgon, I think, you will find these strips as well. Helps you decide what type of water you have, helps you measure the general hardness of your water. Now, this general hardness cannot really be eliminated. If you're dealing with hard water, boiling it will not help because salts do not evaporate. They just sediment on the bottom of your pots, so boiling it will not help. But what will help actually to lower it is adding some peat to it. In local aquaristic shops, you will find some peat granules that you can put in the water, and that actually will make the water slightly softer. Don't imagine it will take all the salts away, but it will help you. It will make it slightly softer. So general hardness will tell you how much dissolved salts you have in your water. Orchids don't like too many dissolved salts. They don't like hard water. They just like soft to medium soft water. And you saw the charts, you saw the degree of or how we measure actually if the water is soft or hard. So when talking about general hardness, this is actually what they mean by soft and hard water, and this is how you can actually test your water very easy and actually cheap. Okay, let's talk a little bit about pH. Now, pH can tell you if your water is acidic or alkalinic. Now, the neutral, let's say, level for your pH would be 7. If you have a water with a pH of 7, that's considered to be neutral water. If your water is lower than 7, has a lower pH than 7, goes towards the 6 point, 5 point something, then it's acidic water. And of course, if you go over the limit of 7, you're gonna have alkalinic water. Now, acidic water usually is found in places with a lot of biodegradable stuff or a lot of biological degradation. So if you have a water that has a lot of stuff degrading in it, you're gonna have a more acidic water, because degrading stuff release carbon dioxide, which actually makes the pH lower. But I won't really get into that. So our orchids actually prefer a pH of somewhere in between 6.6, 6.8, something like that, to maybe 7.7. Of course, Phalaenopsis-like orchids will tolerate the extremes of these values, but if you're dealing with maybe Miltoniopsis or fussier orchids, they might not really like the extremes. Depending on the orchid variety and species, you can decide which pH is better for it anyway. But as a general rule, I would say a neutral and slightly acidic, slightly alkalinic water, like from 6.8 to 7.2 or 7.4, is going to be okay for most of the orchids you can find available. Okay, how to actually lower pH, I told you can put some peat in the water and it will lower the pH. And how to increase the pH, you can add some calcium to the water, but that will make your water more hard. So anyway, I want to talk about how to actually change these values. They're kind of connected, but I won't go into that. So now let's take each type of water and see what values it has, and if it's good for orchids or if it's not good for orchids. Let's talk about tap water, because everybody has tap water. Now, I use tap water as well, but my values actually are pretty good. I have a hardness of about 5 to 7 degrees, which makes it a fairly soft water. So I can use it to the vast majority of the orchids that I have. I actually use it for everything, even Miltoniopsis, and it's good. So first off, if you want to use tap water, measure your hardness, and if it's too hard, don't use it. I don't think it will be too soft, but anyway, too soft is okay. Too hard is really not okay. Regarding the pH, usually drinking water from your faucet will have a pH of slightly alkalinic. It's going to be slightly alkaline. It's going to be over 7.2 anyway. It could go up to 7.6. My particular water is about 7.3 or 7.4. I'm not really sure. It's something like that. Anyway, but it makes it good for orchids, because orchids tend to like values from 6.8 to 7 or 6.6 to 7.8, as I told you. The vast majority of them, let's say, they will do okay. Okay, so these are the main values for tap water that you have to take into account, and you have to know first before using it. There is another thing with tap water, and that is chlorine. A lot of people are afraid of chlorine, and of course the value of chlorine might vary from a city to another or a country to another, just like hardness. My water could be softer than your water. I have different values in different cities in the same country. So the chlorine level might be higher in some places, might be lower in some places, and unfortunately I did not measure it, I don't know. But I use it as it is, and nobody complained so far, so the amount of chlorine that I have in my water is okay. If you're afraid that your water has too much chlorine, you can actually do a pretty easy thing. Just put the water you want to water your orchids with in a bucket, a white opened container, actually leave it there 12 to 24 hours, and the chlorine will actually evaporate. Don't leave it in bottles that are closed, because it will not evaporate. Leave it in a container that has a wide opening so it can evaporate, and then you can use it, because most of the chlorine will go away. There's another chemical here that will not, and I'm not sure how to call it in English. It's sort of like chlorine, but it's not. That will depend on your area, but I don't think it's going to be any trouble, because they're not allowed to put a lot of chlorine in your water. There's a limit there anyway. So yeah, this is how you can make tap water good for your orchids if the other values are okay. Good, so we've got tap water out of the way. Let's talk about distilled water. And I'll reach to rainwater later. Now, distilled water, I know you don't understand what it says here. Distilled water can be found in gas stations, in grocery shops, anywhere, because you can use it with your iron, you can use it with your car, and so on and so forth. Now, distilled water is purified water. Let's call it like that. What actually, it's a filtered water. Most of its mineral content has been taken away, so it's actually very soft water. The pH of this water will be, I think, neutral. It's not going to be acidic, it's not going to be too alkaline. It's going to be somewhere in the middle. It's going to be a balanced water. Now, of course, you can use distilled water with your orchids, especially if you have hard water, but there's a major issue. If you only use distilled water, you're not going to provide your orchids the minerals that they actually need. They do need minerals in a lower quantity, let's say. So when using distilled water, it's important to always use fertilizer. Use a small amount of fertilizer with each watering so that you provide to your orchids the minerals that they need. If they don't have minerals, in time you'll actually kill your orchid. You'll start to see all sorts of mutilated leaves and maybe some deficiencies of calcium, which will be like patches of yellow or something like that. Anyway, you're gonna see some issues with your orchids if you only use distilled water as it is without fertilizer or adding some actual salts to it. Now, there are two types of, let's call them purified water out there. There's distilled water and there's dehardened water. Now, dehardened water is not that good for orchids because it's a chemical procedure there. They introduce something to the water that actually dissolves or eliminates the salts, but you don't actually know what chemical they're using. So you might want to stay away from that. Go only for distilled water, which is filtered mechanically. It's nothing chemical going on, at least as far as I know. So stay away from that type of water. Just use distilled water. Now, you can also use something bigger, like an osmosis system, and this will work if you have a lot of orchids or a greenhouse and you need large quantities of osmosis water, or reverse osmosis, I'm not sure. Anyway, this is actually a fixture that you can mount in your house or something like that. I won't go into too many details because I don't have one, so I don't know what to say about it. I just read about it, but what it actually does is purify your tap water, removes the salt, removes like copper ions or whatever you can find in tap water sometimes if it's not a good quality tap water. But in most cases it is. So yeah, you can totally use osmosis water. It's just like distilled water with the same idea that you have to use fertilizer for osmosis water because it does not contain minerals and you're going to kill your plant if you don't give it minerals. Okay, now we finally reach rainwater. Well, rainwater, it's a sort of a natural distilled water. Rainwater is not hard water, it's gonna be soft water, slightly acidic in some cases. So yeah, it should be good for orchids, but there's a major but there as well. Now, if you live in a big city like I do, if you live in a polluted city, rainwater might actually contain some of those pollutants that gather, in clouds and then fall to the ground. So I would not use it if you live in a big city. If you can get it from an open area, like a mountain or a forest or a field or something away from a big city, that could actually work. It's the same with melted snow, actually. Melted snow is just rain that is frozen, so it's the same thing. If you're living in a big city, I wouldn't use it. Go for natural landscapes away from big cities and you can definitely collect it there. Also, remember to put some fertilizer or add some salts to that water as well, as it's not good to use it solely as it is. Okay, there's one more type of water source that you might want to use, and this is mineral water. Whether it's bottled or from a spring, don't go for mineral water. As the name says, it has a high content of minerals that can actually affect and burn the roots of your orchid. So if you want to use some natural water, some spring water or some lake water or stuff like that, just make sure it has the correct parameters, like general hardness, pH and stuff like that. Check if they're well within range. Also, if you want to use a natural source of water, please check the total amount of nitrate and nitrite and also ammonium, because many waters are polluted these days. Check these three stuff that I posted somewhere on the screen. See if they're okay. Ammonium nitrates should be 0. Nitrates, try not to go over 10 milligrams or something like that. Try not to go for that, because that's the actual orchid food, and if you give it too much, it's just like over fertilizing and you're gonna burn the roots. So maybe you want to stay away from the natural type of waters unless you really know all these values. Oh, and there's another type of water you can use. There's aquarium water, which is, if you have a balanced aquarium, if it's cycled, if it got through the nitrogen cycle and everything, and you know it doesn't have any ammonium or nitrates, and you know that the nitrate level is quite low, you can actually use that. Check the pH, because old aquariums have a very acidic water due to the deposits of residue of fish waste and food waste and stuff like that. Check how acidic your water is, check how hard your water is, see if it has ammonium, if it has nitrates and nitrates. Don't let them be too high, because it's gonna, along with your fertilizer, it's gonna be overwhelming the plant and you can actually burn it. So okay, I think I covered it all actually. Okay, we've got all these things out of the way. Hopefully I've answered your question. Hopefully now you can decide what type of water you want to use. I hope it wasn't too hard to understand, or I was coherent enough to actually explain what I wanted to explain. So what I personally do, I use my tap water. As I told you, I have a good enough tap water. None of my orchids have actually complained, not even the Miltoniopsis. One is gonna bloom. Yay, I'm so happy. I just saw flower spike. Anyway, so yeah, if you do have too much of a hard water, go for distilled water or osmosis water, but keep in mind you have to add some salts to it from your fertilizer, because most fertilizers have micronutrients as well. If your fertilizer doesn't have micronutrients, go pick one up that has micronutrients. Micronutrients are the other stuff, not the NPK, that's the macronutrients. Micronutrients are iron, calcium, magnesium, stuff like that your kids actually need. So okay, hopefully it didn't bore you. Hopefully you liked this video and you understand better now. I always think that knowing stuff for yourself will always help you. Don't go for like people who say only use this water, only use that water, and don't give you additional information. It's always good to know about these things that might actually not have anything to do with orchids, but it will definitely help you out. And yeah, do your own decisions, make your own choices. They're always better than whatever you find in articles if you are very well informed. Okay, so I'll end it here. It's a pretty long video, as I always tend to make long videos, so I hope you just enjoyed it, and hopefully I've answered the question. So okay, I'll see you next time. If you like this video, you can subscribe to my channel, because I really like you guys to be subscribed. And yeah, you're gonna stay up to date. And yeah, leave me questions, leave me suggestions, and I'll try to make these types of videos where I can explain some stuff and actually help you guys decide which is best for you. Okay, I'll see you next time, and thank you for joining. Bye.